Hey, welcome back to the channel. This is sort of a brand new series. It's going to be sort of 1 or 2 videos about Pusher. Now, Pusher allows you to implement real-time technology into your websites, into your web applications. You can use it in mobile apps as well. But in this, we're going to be focusing on implementing it in Laravel. Now, let me give you this sort of scenario. Let's say you've got a messaging application. This is the most obvious one. You've got a messaging application, and a user sends a message, but then on the receiving end, you've got to actually refresh the page in order to see any new messages that are on the server. Now, you might get around this by polling the server by Ajax every couple of seconds to see if there's any changes. So what you do is you go, hey, is there any changes? No. Is there any changes? No. It's like the whole are we there yet thing. And one, it's annoying. And two, you're using unnecessary resources. You're taking up bandwidth on the client side and on the server. You're taking up like server resources. You think about if you've got 100 people on your website polling the server every second, that's 100 connections per second. And most of them are going to be empty requests, so totally unnecessary. And also one other thing is the latency. You've got like a maximum of 2 seconds between sending a message and receiving it, or maybe 5 seconds, depending on how often you're polling it. Whereas with real time, what you can do is force messages. You can push messages to the client, so the client just has to sit there, stretch its legs, wait, and the server go, hey, there's a message, and then it can react. It doesn't need to keep asking. The server will just tell it, right? And it does this by literally sending a request from the client side, and then the server holds on to the request. It doesn't send anything back until something needs to be sent. That's how they sort of get around it. That's how WebSockets work. I'm not going to go into detail in that because we're going to look at it from, well, how do we implement it? The idea of Pusher is it's a paid for service, but they do have a really generous free plan. And the idea is you don't really have to worry about how it works. You don't need to worry about the infrastructure. You just sort of build. You just write code, you write your business logic, and you just enjoy it. That's it. By the way, this isn't a paid series. I just quite like Pusher. I've started using it lately at work, and I think it's pretty cool, so I thought I'd show it. Anyway, it's super simple to get started. Just go get a free account, sign up. You get like 100 active connections at once, so 100 people can be using your site using the real-time stuff at a time. So 100 at a time is a lot for most people. You can also do, I think, 200,000 messages per month, which is way more than sort of most just developer hobby projects and even most sort of small commercial projects. So, you know, the free plan is going to be pretty good for most people. Set up the application, just call it whatever you want. Select a cluster and remember which one you pick. I'm picking EU because Ireland is just sort of nearby there. I'm pointing to it as if it's there. No, it's quite far away, but it's near enough. On the front end, we're going to be using jQuery. This is kind of, a lot of people will be saying, jQuery, what is it, 2009? Yeah, jQuery, but because most of you probably are familiar with jQuery to some extent. You can use React, you can use Angular, whatever you want to use, or even native JavaScript, or just vanilla JavaScript. But we're going to be using jQuery. It's going to make our life a whole lot easier. And on the back end, we're going to be using Laravel. Don't pick the PHP one, pick the Laravel one. Although saying that, I think it doesn't make a difference, but just Laravel. Okay, create my app. So Pusher will now provision like an API key and all of that for you, and you can see that here. So on the left side we've got the client side of code, the HTML, and on the right we've got the server code. So you'll see there's a .env option and there's a PHP option. So PHP is if you just want like vanilla PHP, is that a thing? Vanilla PHP? And then the .env is suitable for Laravel. We're not going to be using the PHP, we're going to be using Laravel's built-in broadcasting, which I'm going to show you in a moment. But anyways, copy and paste your HTML file from the left, and these keys, I'm going to be destroying this application at the end, so if you want to try and steal that key, go for it, but your account's free, so just go for it yourself. So we're going to create a view, resources, views, new file, and this is going to be counter.blade.php. I don't know why I named it that, it's just the first thing that came to mind. I'm going to be going through this really quickly because the point of this tutorial isn't how to set up a HTML file. It's about Pusher. If you need HTML, go find that somewhere else. I'm adding the HTML tags in because for some reason Pusher doesn't include them. I don't know why. Is that not a requirement anymore? Maybe not. But I added them in because that's how I always do it. And one last thing we need is the jQuery CDN. So let's go ahead and grab that, jQuery CDN, blah, 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 blah. I just grab it from Google usually. It's just easier. So just grab it here, jQuery CDN, and that's going to allow us to use all of the jQuery functions. So paste it in right at the top, and we should be good to go there. One more thing we need to do, just so we can display this page, is to create a root for it. So web.php, and if you're unfamiliar with any of this, by the way, go ahead and watch my 45-minute Laravel tutorial. It takes 45 minutes, it's quite good. Well, I think it's quite good anyway. It literally will teach you all of the stuff you need to know to be able to watch this tutorial. It shows you all the basics, like the prerequisites to this tutorial. Anyway, /counter, and this is going to be a function. I'm going to do it inline because you should do a separate controller, but totally unnecessary in this case. Return view, and we're calling it counter. The view counter is the one we just made, counter.blade.php. Okay, so now we can go ahead and start, where is it? PHP artisan serve. I need to cd into the project folder, so cd project, which is right here, and then PHP artisan serve. Cool. Okay, so the server's up. Now we can go ahead and go to localhost 8000 /counter. Wait for it. That's not going to work, is it? So it turned out I actually had port 8000 already in use in a different user account, so don't worry too much about that. That's just on me. But if you go to /counter now, and then open up the DevTools, and go into the console, you'll see that Pusher has actually logged a bunch of stuff. So have a look here. So Pusher has said that we've initialized Pusher, and then we've connected. And then we connect to the socket, we set up, we sort of subscribe to a channel on the socket. A channel is like a room. Think of it like a conversation or a specific like chat room or something. You might have a room or a channel for a particular user account or a particular page. You can really name them however you want, and you'll see that in a minute. But in this case, the one we're subscribed to is called My Channel, and you'll see that back in the code. If you go in the Blade file, you'll see pusher.subscribe my channel, and you can name this whatever you want, and then on the back end you just got to line it up. We're going to leave it as my channel, and then if I go ahead and pull that to one side and then pull pusher on the right here, there's a debug console. Now this lets you actually send events from the web page, from the web version of this. So when you create an event, you choose a channel, you choose an event name, and in this case we are listening for my event. So this is like the event handler, so we're binding on the channel to that event, we're listening out for that specific event, and this is what we're going to do if we see that event called my event on that channel. I hope that made sense. Well, we're going to send a my event on the my channel, which our user is subscribed to, and we can send in a payload here. And then if I just hit send, look how instant that was. There was no polling. If I go into the network tab and show you that again, I'm going to send an event. There's absolutely no polling going on here. It's all on a WebSocket, so it's all going on in the background. There's no polling it. It's just instant. And Pusher takes care of the infrastructure for you. It's really quite cool. But that's only half of it. We're receiving the requests, but how do we send them from our server now? Okay, well that's the next bit. So remember back on Pusher I had the env data. So if you go back into getting started, I think. Yeah, and then you go over to env, it gives you the settings here. So this is app ID, key, and secret. These are just these sort of credentials to authenticate. And you go in the env file, you can see they've already set these up. App ID, key, and secret. Just paste those in. I get rid of the quotes because Laravel doesn't use the quotes. I don't know why they're there. But get rid of the quotes. And that's all you need. Oh, and the Pusher app cluster, set this to, remember I said the server name. So in my case, I'm using EU. Yours might be like US East or something. I don't know what they're called. But on the env file, set this to EU. and then we should be good to go. So now you can just refresh the server, PHP artisan serve, just to clear the cache. And yeah, as I say, I think we're ready to go. So the next thing to do is to set up a page where we can send the request from. So I'm going to create a new view. I'm going to call this sender.blade.php, and it's just going to be a form. And the action is going to be / sender. It's just going to be the same file. And the method is going to be post. We'll put an input in here. Input type is equal to text. Name is equal to content. Value is equal to, so we don't need a value actually, just name content, and we'll fill the value in. Then an input with a submit. You can really see what that's going to be. It's going to be a text box and a submit button, and then we're going to push that to the client in real time. So let's try that out. So let's go ahead and back in our web.php, we're going to just copy and paste that function, paste it there, sender, and we're going to return the view sender. So now back in here, we can go grab sender. There it is. There's our sort of form. And then we need to handle the post of this. So copy that again. And this one is going to be post. And then to handle that, we're going to say, we're going to leave that empty for now. So this is going to be, this is the post, for lack of a better comment. So that's the post request right there. That this is what's going to actually send off that command to broadcast. Now in Laravel, broadcasting is done based on events. So you trigger an event, so just a general Laravel thing, you trigger an event when something happens, so an order was placed, or an order status has changed, or a new user has signed up. And those events can do all sorts of things. You might have an event for example, new user sign up. And then you have listeners on that event which say, hey, if a new user signs up, send them a welcome email, and also update the stats page on the back end, or send them a text message, that kind of thing, right? Or maybe hook up their calendar, whatever it is. The events have listeners, so you have an event which says, hey, this has happened, and then the listeners are all waiting for something to happen, and then when it happens, they go and do whatever they're told to do. It really is a way to separate your sort of after processes, is that a thing? Your after processes from your sort of business logic. You can read more into that on the Laravel documentation, but I'm not going to go through it too much here because that's a whole nother thing. So to create an event, PHP artisan make : event, and then you give your event a name. So I'm going to say form submitted. This probably isn't a very good event in the long run, but normally you'd have something like order complete or new purchase or something like that. And now you'll see a file called form submitted.php, and that's in the app events form submitted.php. Then inside this class you'll see a function called broadcast on, and you'll see channel names in here. Now this lines up exactly with what's on the front end, the channel name, and this is where I say it just all hooks straight into Pusher. So the channel name is going to be my channel, and then there's three types of channels. You get channels which anyone can see, they just have to be on the web page and they can see it. You get private channels where you have to authenticate them, so maybe it's by their login details or their IP address or whatever that is, kind of like a middleware for getting into that broadcasting or into that channel. And then you get presence channels, which are the same as a private channel, except they say whether someone's online or not. So they say whether someone's there. So think about on Facebook, you can see who's online, or maybe someone is typing, that kind of thing. A presence channel just says, hey, this person is here. So they're going to subscribe to my channel, and so we're going to send this to my channel, and it's not going to be a private channel, it's going to be just a regular old channel, which is a public channel. Now, since we want to broadcast this event, you need to have class form submitted implements. So this is an interface should broadcast, and that means that this class, whenever it's hit, will broadcast it in the simplest possible terms. That's what it's meant to do. And then now you might be thinking, this is great, but how do we actually trigger this event? How do we say that this event needs to happen or it has happened? And that's really simple. Back in the web.php file, we're going to say event, and that's a function, new, and this is called form submitted. And when I hit enter, by the way, I'm going use app events form submitted. I'm including this in my class, so new form submitted, and then in here you can pass in whatever data you want. So I'm going to say text, and then you pick that up in the constructor function, so $text. Then you might say $this text is equal to $text, and you can declare public $text. That's really simple stuff. So we take whatever payload is what we call it, any payload, we pass it in the construct, we set it as a global variable here, and then we can access that when we broadcast it. So now let's test this out. There's probably some more I need to do, but let's just test this out. PHP artisan serve, and we're going to just hit that button and see what happens. I'm going to have Pusher open on the right on the debug console page, and we can see if anything's coming through here. So let's go and post hello, and sorry your session has expired. That would be because we're not passing in a CSRF field. So this is just a security thing, it's general across Laravel, not specific to Pusher. So CSRF field, and refresh that. Let's try it again. Hello. Undefined variable text, and that would be because $text is equal to request text. So that just gets it out of the get or the post request. Let's try that again. So now we sent it. I think we sent it there. Let's try again. Sender, hello to. Okay, we've sent it. We've triggered the event. But here's a few things we need to do first. Stop your server, and then in the .env file, there is a driver for broadcasting. So by default, it's set to log, which means there's a file somewhere where these broadcasts are getting logged. This is good for testing, but it's not good for this situation here. So the driver we want is called Pusher. There's two steps to this. We set the driver to Pusher, which comes out of the box of Laravel, kind of, but then we need to install the Pusher library or the Pusher package with Composer. And we can do that here. Let's just copy this line here and paste it in. And that's going to go ahead and grab the dependencies, install it, unpackage it, all of that, and we'll be back in a minute. Okay, that's all done. Let's try it again. So we're going to go Pusher PHP artisan serve now that we've got it installed. And let's go ahead and trigger that again. So you see here, we're refreshing the page, and these events are coming through on Pusher. So that's one half of it sorted. And if I open this in a new tab and I go, instead of sender, counter, I'm just going to open up here. You can see it came up saying occupied because someone is now in the channel. Someone is listening for it. Now if I go ahead and refresh that page, or rather let's send a post request. Where is it? Send a hello to, and I open up the console here. Hello to. I'm submitting it, but you see here, no callbacks on my channel for app events form submitted. And the reason for this is because remember back in our JavaScript, where was it? Counter, we had to bind to an event, we had to listen out for a specific event, and in this case we're not listening for an event of that type there. So let's go ahead and copy that, since that is the name, and paste that in the event name. Now if I pull that counter back up, like that, counter, push it over there, we're going to send the request again. And you see no callbacks on my channel for app form submitted. And the reason for that is because the letter E and the letter F are being escaped. But what I prefer to do, because this is like a backend specific name, it's very specific to the file structure on the backend, and it also might give away to sort of malicious users how your backend is set up. I quite like to name these myself. So I'm going to call it, what do we call it? Form submitted. And then on the back end, you're going to need to change the channel name, or the event name, sorry. So in the form submitted, you can add another function called public function broadcast as, and then you can just return the name. So in this case, we're calling it form-submitted. And you'll see now what happens is, if I go ahead and submit that form, watch the logs, it comes through as form submitted instead of app/events/form submitted. It's got a sort of prettier name now. So that's all good. Now we can check on the front end, see if it's picking it up. So now we're listening for that request. I'm going to post something in here, and there you go. It has alerted, it knows we did it, but for some reason the text is still null, and you'll see that in the console here it says text null. So looks like there's probably just an issue there. $this text is equal to text. We're passing that text in, public $text, and that gives me a good opportunity to show how I would debug something like this. So I would go into my web file, I would say, well, is the text even getting here? So echo $text die, and then I could post my form. Nothing's coming out, which tells me that sender, the name is content. So if we change that to text, I just got my names mixed up. Refresh it, hello, submit it, hello comes out, that's all good. That means the text is getting to this part here, and hopefully then it will get into the event and the rest should work. And then now if I give it a go, I'm going to go here, just refresh in case, pass some text in, hit submit, and here you go. On the other end, it's come through. You can display that as a message or an alert or whatever you want to do. But yeah, I'm going to leave this video here because I think that covers the basics. In the next episode, we'll look at presence channels and private channels, and maybe we'll come up with a little project. Yeah, I kind of like the idea of just doing like a general Laravel project, maybe using Pusher or something. So if you've got any ideas, let me know for that. And then I'm going to do a follow-up video as well, talking about a bit of the state of this YouTube channel. I've done it before, but I want to talk about it now for the end of 2018 and where I want to go with it, because it's completely different to anything I've done before. Anyway, I'm going to leave this video here. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.